We just got, and we're showing our viewers these pictures. Senator, while we look at these shots of the president visiting the Pentagon, people are asking, I hear what you're saying about wanting to make sure that everything is done to take care of the victims. Of course, we all feel that way, but there is a strong feeling that, and it's been expressed not just by the administration, but by others, that the United States cannot let something like this stand. And my question to you is, what does that mean?
Well, we will not let it stand. We will punish the perpetrators. We will take action, and we will show our resolve. But I think we, as we have in so many cases in the past, we have to be smart about it. We knew who the enemy was that bombed Pearl Harbor. We know who the enemies are in most cases involving war. I think we need to ensure we can identify the enemy, identify the locations of the enemy, and make sure we've got a plan put into place that will allow us the maximum degree of ability to punish those responsible. That can't happen tomorrow. It can't happen within the next couple of days for sure, but it will happen. I think we just have to ensure that we have all of the pieces together prior to the time we make it happen.
But Senator, when the President, when Secretary of State Powell and others say we are not just going to go after the terrorists, we're going to go after those who are harboring the terrorists, don't we have a pretty clear idea of what countries, what states have harbored, have offered aid and comfort to these people?
Well, I think there is a general understanding of that. Obviously, as we look to what we're going to do now, we're going to have to take that into account. And that is part of this fact-gathering process that must now be underway. But clearly, we've got to have more than just that, some vague notion of where these terrorists have lived in the past. We've got to know with a lot more precise detail what exactly we're going to do about it, and what warning we're going to give, and what actions may be required of those who may still be harboring terrorists today.
But, Senator, at the same time, I'm hearing calls and reading calls from those who say we shouldn't wait for the judicial process to work its way, for there to be a long, drawn-out investigation and a court proceeding, that the United States needs to move more quickly than that.
Well, I don't know that I disagree with much of that. I do think, though, that it is important for us to ensure that we do this smartly. I'm not saying do it with every legal question answered, because we may not be able to resolve all of these questions legally. But we do have a responsibility to do it correctly and to do it swiftly, but do it with all of the facts, and that's exactly what I think this country is doing today.
What do you mean by swiftly? Can you put some sort of timetable on it?
No, I think it would be a mistake to put a timetable arbitrarily on whatever actions we're going to take. We know it's going to be done. We know actions will be taken. We just ought to be patient, but also continue through other actions to show our resolve. We did that today on the Senate and House floor. We are going to continue to do that in our work and cooperation with the President of the United States and this administration.
Senator, I'm talking to you as we've just been continuing to watch the raw footage, pictures of President Bush visiting with employees, both military and civilian, at the Pentagon, and I want to apologize to our viewers. Those pictures were pretty shaky, and as I say, it was unedited. We aired it just as it came in. One final question, Senator Daschle. How long is this spirit of cooperation between your party, the Democrats, and the Republicans going to last in the aftermath of this terrible tragedy?
Well, Judy, on matters pertaining to this crisis, I hope it lasts until the very, very last moment it's required. We have a new day, a new crisis, a new challenge, and I think, therefore, a new responsibility. And we're going to live up to that responsibility to the very best of our ability, regardless of how long it may take.
And finally, when does the Congress get back to business?
We're going to take up the Commerce and State Justice Appropriations Bill tomorrow. That was the pending business on Monday, and we hope to complete it this week.
All right, Senator Tom Daschle, who was the Majority Leader in the United States Senate, thank you very much. Good to see you, Senator. For more in the aftermath of this tragedy that has shaken all of us, for more now on the emotions of the people who have been affected by it, CNN's Candy Crowley now.
At daybreak, the nightmare was still there, smoldering and burning, defying the imagination, thwarting rescue efforts, and testing an untested president.
The United States of America will use all our resources to conquer this enemy. We will rally the world. We will be patient, we'll be focused, and we will be steadfast in our determination. This battle will take time and resolve, but make no mistake about it, we will win.
8 months in office, President George Bush is already writing what may be the most important page of his own legacy. In an unusual revelation, officials said both the White House and Air Force One may have been targets. The news sheds some light on the president's first hours following the attacks when, instead of returning immediately to Washington, he flew from Florida to a military base in Louisiana and then another in Nebraska. Today, in both New York and Washington, the precarious nature of the rubble and the hellish heat of the fire frustrated attempts to reach the wounded, the dying, or the dead. Still, in Manhattan, they rescued alive and reasonably well 9 firefighters and police officers who had been buried beneath the debris. Their recovery fueled a round-the-clock search that runs mostly on adrenaline and hope.
I think once the cranes and the iron workers start getting the big stuff out of the way, we can get in there and do some nitpicking and maybe find some guys. There's a lot of voids, it seems, down there, so maybe there are some guys available.
But at the Pentagon, hope is gone. Officials say whoever might have survived the concussion of the plane's impact could not have lived through the fires that came after. There's no official estimate of how many lives were lost at the Pentagon or the World Trade Center. Authorities say they don't know, but everybody knows it will be awful. The FBI says it's identified most of the suicidal terrorists on the planes. Now they search for those behind the mayhem.
We also have identified through a number of leads, principally at the cities of origin, a number of individuals whom we believe may have had something to do with the hijackings, and we are pursuing those leads aggressively.
It is a very public manhunt. The FBI conducted a shoulder-to-shoulder search for evidence outside the Pentagon. Authorities in Providence, Rhode Island halted and boarded a Washington-bound Amtrak train, detaining at least one passenger. A SWAT team descended on a Boston hotel in search of suspects. No arrests were made. Authorities also searched a Vero Beach, Florida home and questioned others in the southern Florida area. The visibility of the efforts backs up the clear message from all arms of the federal government.
We will find out who is responsible for this, and they will pay for it.
I guess I'm kind of old-fashioned. I'm inclined to think that if you're going to cock it, you throw it.
Terrorism's reach goes far beyond the areas of immediate destruction. The nation's airliners still aren't flying as the FAA institutes new security requirements and carriers search for ways to comply. Wall Street remains closed, and for a second evening there'll be no Major League Baseball, the all-American pastime canceled by this un-American horror. Symbolically, personally, financially, the country is so wounded. The totality of the loss is incomprehensible, but the details are unbearable.
Someone on the 104th floor worked for the good firm of Cantor and Fitzgerald. We can't find hardly anybody from that firm who called his parents, told him he loved him, and they haven't heard from him since.
There are stories like it everywhere. People, knowing they are about to die, calling home to say, "I love you." People running for their lives and then stopping to carry a stranger to safety. The story here is that what prevailed in the final moment, in the face of death, is not fear or hate, but love and courage. Candy Crowley, CNN, Washington.
And those are the stories that bring us down and lift us up at the same time. Our Jonathan Karl was reporting just a little while ago, and I also was talking with Senate Democratic leader Tom Daschle a minute ago about appropriations to pay for the cleanup, the crisis of this crisis. I'm told that the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee is reporting that now the House and the Senate have agreed on a figure of $20 billion, an emergency supplemental payment that would be spent at the desire of the administration, the White House, to deal with the crisis. The House and Senate are going to take this supplemental up tomorrow. They plan to have it on President Bush's desk by the end of business, by the end of the day tomorrow. Aaron, back to you in New York.
Judy, thank you. We continue to keep our eye just to the left of what was Building 7, this large gray building, One Liberty Plaza. When we first heard the concern that this building might come down, We saw windows and facing on the west side, the right side of your screen popping out. Now we can see, and we suspect you can as well. Yes, indeed. Some of the windows now further to the east, more to the center of the building, on the seam line there, starting to pop out also. A large number of ambulances, 1, 2, 3 that I can see, 4, 5, 6, 7 at least that I can see, have moved into the area, moving towards the area as we talk to you now. People have been pulled out, though there is still, and Danny, I'm not sure if you can see it or not on the shot you're on, there's still a fair number of fire officials in that blown out area that is was a street yesterday and is now just a kind of wasteland there just ahead of the fire truck. There's still a fair number of people there, and we watched that building. And just for a moment, think about the implications here. That building, if it collapses, causes collateral damage. If that building doesn't collapse, but remains a danger to collapse, the rescue operation, if not totally shut down, is largely shut down. Now, I'm sure smarter people than I are figuring out how they're going to deal with this, but they have an enormous problem, about a 60-story problem, just to the east of the Trade Center. Some of the most fascinating reporting that we have heard today has come from CNN's Miles O'Brien. Miles has been following the flight paths and whatever information on board the 4 hijacked airplanes he could gather as he worked his sources and his computer and the rest. Miles joins us in Atlanta now with more on the detail, some cases shocking detail, of what he's been able to learn. Miles?
Shocking, horrifying, it all applies when you start looking at these 4 doomed flights, Aaron. Take a look here. This is the track of the 2 flights which left Boston. They were headed to the West Coast. Ultimately, of course, they ended up right near where Aaron is, striking the World Trade Center, eventually leveling them. Those flight paths are somewhat more clear-cut when you consider the goals of the terrorists. The flight that has caused us great interest today is this one, United Airlines Flight 93, which left from Newark Airport, made it as far as Cleveland, and did a 180-degree turn and seemed to be heading in toward the Baltimore-Washington area. Unclear what the target was, but the question that has been on our minds all day long is, why did this plane crash here? Was there perhaps some sort of struggle inside the cockpit of that particular aircraft? And we do know more about that now. But first, let me tell you a little bit about some of the other flights and what was going on board. Nothing seemed amiss when American Airlines Flight 11 left the runway in Boston Tuesday morning. The 767-200 was about half full, toting 81 passengers, a cockpit crew of 2, and 9 flight attendants to the opposite coast. The captain likely planned for a 5-hour flight, so there was roughly 8,500 gallons of jet fuel in its 3 tanks. FAA radars tracked the airliner as it followed the flight plan. But then, about 20 minutes into the flight, somewhere over upstate New York, it turned sharply to the south. Flight 11 was hijacked, apparently by knife-wielding men. Airline pilots are trained to handle such situations by keeping calm, complying with requests, and, if possible, dialing in an emergency 4-digit code on a device called a transponder. It transmits crucial flight data to air traffic controllers. The action takes seconds, but it appears no such code was entered. But in the cabin, a frantic flight attendant managed to use a phone to call American Airlines Command Center in Dallas. She reported the trouble, and according to the Christian Science Monitor, a pilot apparently keyed the microphone, transmitting a cockpit conversation. The hijackers could be heard saying, "We have more planes, we have more planes." Radio transmissions like this would have been recorded on the ground by the FAA.
The police have identified 5 suspects that they believe were involved with this terrorist act, and 2 of whom may be brothers, apparently, reportedly. 2 of whom, 2 others, may have flown in from Portland and originated in Canada.
About 5 minutes before Flight 11 started heading south, another 767, United Flight 175, left Boston, also for Los Angeles.